Hey, Elias, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Mm, quite good, quite good. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
So, yeah, we're recording now. I can cut anything out that, you're not comfortable with or whatever. But
Okay.
yeah, there's two kind of lines of conversation I was hoping to go down. One is kind of your journey as a YouTube creator, and the other, we can kind of get into some investing stuff. And I posted a community post. So there's questions from my audience for us. Dive the World wanted to give you a shout out. He was excited that we were chatting
Oh,
today.
yeah. I've talked to him before. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Um, so you've been making videos, it looks like since the end of 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I made a couple at the end of 2019, and then I really started at it back in probably like March when everyone was home doing nothing. Like I had nothing to do. I'm like, might as
Yeah,
well make some more videos. So that's when I started
likewise.
taking. So that's when I went more on YouTube.
Awesome. And what was your intention kind of starting the channel? Was it to create another income stream? Was it to become a better investor? Have you just pass the time? What really inspired you to get going?
Um, the biggest thing was probably just like I was someone that used to watch a lot of investing videos on YouTube, and just like
Hmm.
so much of it is just like crap advice, honestly. Um, so I don't know. I just felt like if people really want to learn how to invest properly, like none of these videos are really showing how to do it. So that's where I thought I
Right.
could step in and make videos that are different from all the other ones out there.
Yeah, yeah. I had a similar experience. I won't name names, but uh, the very prominent YouTuber who's just putting out hype videos constantly. And I was like, oh man, like I need to deliver some content that is actually going to help people. And I looked back to his original videos just to see, all right, where did this guy start out? And it was so interesting. Like one of his first videos was like how to open a checking account or something like that. And it was like a minute long. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. It's a real confidence boost seeing that. But I'm curious for you, like, is being in front of a camera something you've always been comfortable with? What was it like kind of starting out?
Yeah, no, not at all. When I started out, it's definitely a learning process, just learning how to present things to the camera. I think the biggest thing for me was like I thought I knew how something worked or how to explain something, and then once I actually
Mm.
tried saying it in front of a camera, I'm like, well, maybe I don't know as much as I think I do.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of it, making sure you actually understand it before you're able to explain it to someone else.
Right. Yep. Learning through teaching, I've found incredibly helpful as well. So, I went through, this is something I did early on to figure out, what kind of content to make, find the YouTubers who are crushing it in investing and kind of sort by most popular, like what topics are really getting traction. So I did that for your channel. And it seems like, this stock market crash is a really big keyword for you, stock market bubbles. You've got like a penny stock video that just went nuts. And I actually looked at the 3 penny stocks that you covered, and they've done fantastically since you
Have
made
they
them.
have they really? I don't even
Yeah,
remember what they were,
I
honestly.
think you said in the video, you said, just caution, guys, I'm not investing in these. So I'm curious if you can speak about, when you're deciding what topics to make videos on, how much of it is, all right, clearly this is something people are interested in versus, this is something I want to learn more about. Like, how do you figure out what kind of content you want to make?
Yeah, so well, when I was first starting out and I had like no subscribers, I did what everyone else did and like looked up like, how to get more subscribers on YouTube and try to do all those methods that are like, make videos about like what people are searching for and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And so that's what I started out with. And like you said, I made one video about, the title was like stock market crash, like about to happen or something like that. And it just like blew up somehow. Um, yeah, I got like 300,000 views or something. Like none of my other videos have even come close to that. But
Yeah.
so that's how I started out. But as I've been going, um, now I mean, now I have more of a subscriber base, I guess. But now I've been starting to make videos more about what I'm interested in and what I want other people to understand about
Mhm.
my investing style, I guess, instead of just what's popular out there, making a video about like Tesla or something, like
Mhm.
stocks that I'm actually interested in, even if they don't get as much views as they could be if I made some of these other types of videos.
Right. It's hard though, man. I mean, YouTube, Google has done such a great job. When I open my phone to see how my videos are performing, it's like they've figured out how to gamify this thing, right?
Oh yeah.
It's so addictive to try to get that like 1 out of 10 video that's just taken off. And I constantly have to check myself, like, okay, why am I doing this? Am I really just trying to, and partly if you throw out a video once in a while where you're riding a wave of like what's popular, you get more subscribers, you get more people on your channel, and then you can reach more eyeballs with that content that you're actually teaching people how to be a better investor with. So it seems like it's not an all or nothing thing
Well, yeah,
necessarily.
something I do too is sometimes if there's a popular topic, I'll like make a video about it, but I'll give like my own point of view, which is usually different from
Right.
what everyone else is saying. So like once I made a video about Tesla and I'm like, well, guys, maybe it's not a great idea to invest in Tesla at $500 or wherever it is now. And of course that got like so many dislikes,
Oh yeah,
um but yeah, I think that's another way to do it too.
totally. Yeah, it's like a religion. Some people who are invested in Tesla, you can't say anything bad about Tesla.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Um, let's see. I had one other thing on the tip of my tongue about, so I have a number of followers who are trying to grow their own YouTube channels. Do you have maybe like one or two pieces of advice for somebody who's just starting out, maybe under 100, under 1,000 subscribers, who's trying to get that traction?
I would say the first thing is I would say treat your subscribers like actual people, not just
Hmm.
a number. Like make sure you're like if someone reaches out to you, acknowledge that they took the time to write something to you and that get back to them. When I started, I used to answer like every single comment that I got,
Hmm.
every single DM and stuff like that. So I think that's a big part of it. Another thing is, I mean, like you said, try to find trending topics and find a way that try to find a way to make your videos different than everyone else's, whether that's like a different viewpoint or a different way of making them. I think that's a way to stand out because it's so hard to stand out on YouTube now. It's like everyone's posting videos.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice. Um, was there a point in your YouTube journey where you're like, okay, like clearly this thing is kind of taking on a life of its own. It's going somewhere. Was there a moment where you had kind of a tipping point, or has it been a pretty gradual kind of climb?
Um, it was pretty gradual, and then I had a couple of videos that really blew up, and I was getting like a couple thousand subscribers a day. And
Wow.
that this was last summer, probably May June. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, this could become something pretty big.
Awesome. All right, let's flip over into the investing space here. So, you've made some videos about market crash. Clearly, you've done some thinking about that. What is your take in terms of, well, I should ask more specifically, how are you looking at kind of cash to investments in your portfolio? Like, are you kind of stockpiling cash ready for a crash, or how are you thinking about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think where the stock market is now, I don't think it's sustainable. So I mean, I don't know how long it can keep going up like this, but I think eventually we're going to see stocks go back down to how they've been historically valued. But I don't go out and short the stock market or anything like that. I just focus on buying good companies that I know are going to be around, even if we have a bad recession or something like that. Um, and then, like you said, holding some cash is also a good idea. That's something I've been doing. My portfolio is probably around like 30% cash right now. So I have a good chunk that I can use if we do see some sort of crash in the stock market or something like that.
Cool. Um, What is your, I'll just throw something out of left field here. What is your take on SPACs? Have you gotten involved in any SPACs, or are you one of those value investors who kind of looks at that whole space just like, I'm not going there. That's kind of wild, the Wild West right now.
Yeah, personally, I haven't. I don't know. It seems like I should. It seems like every SPAC, once they announce a deal, just goes like up like 50% or something like that. But no, I haven't. But it seems like if there's a way to invest in them that's low risk. I've seen a couple of your videos on SPACs
Mm,
actually talking about if you buy into them around their net asset value, then they can be pretty good deals.
yeah, yeah. It's an interesting space. It really caught my attention when Seth Klarman, Baupost, bought into Bill Ackman's SPAC. Oh, okay. And then, of course, the next 13F, you see, Klarman owns like 10 SPACs. And, part of it, I think, is that they were able to get in before the IPO and get a bunch of warrants. And so it's a different risk profile than it would be even getting in right after the IPO, still close to NAV. But it's a fascinating kind of area to play in where there's still that excitement of the pop. But if you can also find how to do it in a way that you're close to the floor, I think it's a kind of an interesting way to have both the value investment and kind of dance with the music, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's also you could do a bunch of interesting things with like options with those, or
Mhm.
even like the warrants. There's so many SPACs, like the most popular ones. A lot of the times, the warrants are just so mispriced that it's pretty easy to just do something like buy the warrants and short the stock or something like that, and you can make a pretty good return that way too. I've read about a lot of people that are doing that now, and yeah, so you could. There's a lot of ways to play them for sure.
Yeah, totally. One of the things I've been thinking more about, ever since Trump got banned from Twitter, of course, there was the whole, Discord ban of the Wall Street Bets crowd. How are you thinking about censorship and the power that these big social media platforms have? Like, I don't know if you're very active on platforms other than YouTube, but are you concerned about kind of having so much of your basket on one platform? And are you thinking about kind of diversifying to other platforms like Twitter or Snapchat or, Instagram, whatever it is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. It's definitely something to think about. With all the power Google and YouTube has now, like you can post one video they don't like, and then your whole channel's gone.
Right?
So yeah, so that's been something I'm thinking about. I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter. I don't use them much, so I'm probably gonna start using them more. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, yeah, and I didn't even think about it directly like this, but just recently I've been ramping up kind of my Twitter engagement. Um, I think partly I found some really cool investors on there. I should do a video kind of who I like following on Twitter, but a lot of big YouTubers in the value investing space, I notice it seems like they just link to their latest YouTube video. Like they're not actually trying to build a following kind of natively on Twitter or some of these other platforms. And I think that's a big mistake. I've noticed that with Sven Carlin. Um, and obviously we only have so much time each day, right? And if we're pouring a lot of energy into one platform like YouTube and it's making significant money, I can see why that's kind of the low hanging fruit way to go. But yeah, I've been thinking more about just how to build out communities on these platforms that I'm not just trying to pull them away to one primary platform.
Yeah, I think Twitter's a big one for
Yeah,
investors. There's a ton of smart people on there.
absolutely. So I was just going to pull up that post that I put up to see, what kind of questions people had for us or what topics. Let's see. We'll just go down the list here, unless you had anything you wanted to throw out first.
Now we can get to the questions.
Okay. Dave, please ask him about his investing background, courses or books that he took. So how did you educate yourself as an investor?
That's a good question. So, I guess I first started getting into investing in college. So I have a degree in finance, and um, I guess what really stuck out to me was that the stuff they were teaching in finance classes doesn't really apply to the real world, and how good investors actually do it. So we learned stuff like the dividend growth formula and everything like that, and it all sounds good when you have to do it on a test, but then in the real world it doesn't really apply to much. um, so at that point I figured I wanted something more, so I started. It was first with YouTube, I guess. I just like every single Warren Buffett video on YouTube. I'd watch all of those. um, and then it was books. So Intelligent Investor is the big one. um, One of the first books I read was Phil Towns books. Do you know about those?
Yep, definitely. I really liked his latest one, or his daughter's latest one, Invested. I don't know if you've read that one yet.
I don't think I have. I've read Rule One, and then there was one other.
Payback Time. Yeah.
Yeah, those two. Um, yeah, what I like about his books are that they actually, like, I think it's good how he explains to investors like what investing actually is. Like, I feel like most investing books, like they sound good, and then but there's not really much you can actually take from it and
Right.
apply. I feel like his books are good for that. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much how I started, in school, and then on my own.
So did you find you had to unlearn a lot of what you learned in school, or was it actually helpful? I assume there were
Um,
certain courses that were helpful. Like imagine accounting would have been pretty useful.
yeah, I would say accounting's probably the most useful thing. Um, but I guess it wasn't that hard for me. I mean, once I started learning about value investing and what it actually is, it's sort of like a light bulb went off in my head, and
Hmm.
um, it's like sort of you either get it right away or you don't. It definitely took for me right away, and so I think, yeah, it was pretty easy for me to unlearn all the stuff that they taught in university.
Good. Glad you're able to undo that, the damage.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask also about cryptos. So there's something that's been trending hardcore. It's NBA Top Shot. Have you heard of NBA Top Shot?
Yes, I've heard of it. I don't really know what it is though.
Yeah. So I was back into collecting sports cards back in like the early 90s. I still have them. I don't think they're worth anything, but it's kind of like the next iteration of sports cards. It's like these video moments, where Giannis will like catch a ball and dunk it or something. So it's like a clip, right?
Yeah.
And you can make these clips unique as like a non-fungible token, right? So these clips exist on the blockchain, and there's a unique version. Of course, you can copy them, and I don't fully understand the whole investment thesis here, but it's just gone gangbusters, this whole space. And a lot of value investors, they point to it and say, look, clearly we're in a bubble. If this LeBron James clip is going for $200,000, right? But I look at it like, okay, there's something here, not necessarily from an investing perspective, not necessarily now from an investing perspective, but there's some kind of fundamental shift here, um, to the digital space. And so I don't know, have you gotten into any of that stuff, or have you bought any crypto in the past?
Um, I own some Bitcoin,
Hmm.
not a huge amount, and I'm not really sure. I don't know. Part of me thinks maybe the world could be shifting towards this more digital type of investing, but then part of me also thinks like it's just a bubble and it's eventually going to crash. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess people invest in art, so
Right.
these MBA things could be like digital art.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think these things are going to be around in 5 years?
Well, do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all?
Yeah, I've seen some of those videos.
So he's really the guy who got me interested in starting a YouTube channel, like creating content, kind of being your own brand. And he seems really bullish on these things. So, I don't have a sense for where it's going to go, but I know that if he's bullish on something, it's worth looking at. So I've been digging into it. Um, yeah, it could be a lot like kind of early on with internet companies where, okay, yeah, the industry does grow a lot. You know, that's very plausible, but how do you pick winners at this stage, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's the Wild West. So I'm sure we're early. It's just kind of a fascinating space for me to educate myself on. Let's jump into another question here. Someone asked, recession-proof value picks. Who will weather the storm the best? Have you thought much about that?
Um, well, I think there's a couple ways to look at that. I
Yeah.
mean, first of all, obviously, you're just going to want to find great companies that have strong fundamentals, and then that it's ideal if you have a company with a management team that's been through a recession before,
Hmm.
um, and you know how they handle it. So, like when I find a new stock I want to look at, something I do is I go back to what the company did back in like 2008, 2009, and I like going through their annual reports during that time period to see like how the management reacted to a bad recession. And so I think if you can find companies that can survive that and even take advantage of times like that, I think those are the type of companies you're going to want to invest in. But then I guess there's another way to look at it, and this is something I've done. There's a lot of companies out there that actually do better in recessions. So one of the companies I own, Altasource, they do foreclosures. So if you look, there's a good number of these companies where back in 2008, 2009, they just went up, 10, 15 times. And then
Hmm.
for the past 10 years, they've just been flat while the rest of the market's going up. And so I think if we do see another recession, there's a lot of companies like that could, go up enormously if we do see a bad recession or something like that.
Uh-huh. Have you started deploying some capital into plays like that, or is there still time to kind of get into that?
Um, I mean, yeah. So I talked about Alta sources. Also, I take a look at a couple stocks of companies that own a bunch of pawn shops. So I think those could potentially be
Hmm.
good. Um, Another one was for like liquidation services. So I think there's a lot of companies like that, and most of them haven't really moved. Even in the past year, it seems like everything's going up, but a lot of these names are sort of flat. So I think there's still you can still get in them. As long if the economy keeps doing good, I mean, they're probably not going to do much, but I think it's worth having a small percentage to those names to sort of hedge the rest of your portfolio.
Sure. Yeah, Dollar Tree comes to mind, maybe Walmart, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Have you, let's see, who are your favorite people to clone or investors to get ideas from to dig deeper into?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know if there's any um, really specifically. I mean, there's always the big ones like Warren Buffett and Monish Pabrai. You're
Mhm.
big into him, right?
Big, yeah.
Yeah. So it's those ones. You can look at like Value Investors Club. There's some pretty good
Mhm.
ideas on there. Another thing been doing a lot recently is on Reddit. They have a subreddit. I think it's called Security Analysis. And on that,
Mhm.
they have probably like 50 fund letters that they post every quarter. And so I think it's worth it to read through those. There's some pretty interesting ideas. And it's a lot of the times it's smaller companies, names that you haven't heard before. So I think that's a pretty good way to find ideas too.
Okay, cool. Frank asks, better strategy for the next 10 years, strong moat, defensive low multiple value play, or high growth, disruptive innovation play?
Well, it's hard. I think
Yeah.
the disruptive tech growth names have just been doing so well over the past decade. I don't know. I have to think they're sort of at the end of their run. I think if
Mhm.
you're trying to get in those now, you're sort of late to the party. So I don't know. Personally, I would choose more defensive names with a moat. Yeah. How
Yeah.
would you answer that?
Same thing, man. I mean, it seems like a big part of this game is to be a contrarian or at least not follow the masses. And it seems like there's just so much money going into the next big disruptor. So I'm definitely leaning more towards those low multiple value plays. Let's see. Tips on how to trade options on stocks you want to own long-term while you wait for them to get into the buy zone.
Huh.
Do you do much around options?
Occasionally, yeah. So if there's a stock you want to buy and you generally know the price that you would want to buy it at, the best thing to do would probably just be to sell put options. And then if the stock falls, you'd get assigned. I think that's a pretty decent way to do it. I also, you can do credit spreads occasionally. I do that sometimes if there's a good company and you're confident that it's not going to fall past a certain price, you can do that by selling a put option, then you buy another put option under. So I think there's some decent ways to use options. I don't really do it a whole lot, but once in a while, if I see an opportunity, I'll take advantage of it.
Okay, cool. Marco asks, controfactual thinking and reflexivity as concepts in investing. Do you use those? Are you familiar with those terms?
No.
I'm not either. So we'll pass on that one. Where do you guys find undervalued stocks other than Cloning Super Investors or Value Investors Club? Do you have any favorite sources? You mentioned one other one. You mentioned Reddit, right?
Yeah. So there's that. That's what I've been doing a lot of lately. There's also, there's just plain stock screeners like FinViz. That's pretty good, where you can screen for like cash flow and earnings and stuff. But besides that, that's really it. I think it's just keeping your eyes open, and I think really great opportunities don't come around that much. So it's just having a place where you can find ideas and then being able to take advantage if the time's right.
Right. So I wanted to ask, I don't know how closely you follow Pabrai, but for like the first 20 years of managing his fund, he was looking for 50-cent dollar bills. And now he's switched to trying to find these great long-term compounders that are spawning out kind of businesses, right? These, curious if you have just one investment framework in terms of like one bucket you like to fit investments into, or if you have multiples and how you kind of think about that.
Yeah, I don't think I would fit into just either one or the other specifically. I think I try to definitely use both. So for most of my portfolio, I would say it's the strong business, the compounder that is going to grow every year. And I think those are definitely the ones that you're going to want to hold long term. But yeah, I also think there's stocks that are, they may not be the best quality company, but if they're trading at 40, 50 cents on the dollar, it's worth it to take a position. If there's a reason for it to go up in the near term. So I think you can do it both ways. I don't think you really have to do it one way or the other.
Yeah, makes sense. There's a lot of kind of prominent value investors who are starting to look more outside of the US in emerging markets. They're finding more value there. I'm curious, have you invested outside the US? Kind of what's your personal take on that?
Yeah, that's definitely something I've thought about. The US market is just so expensive now. And looking at, other countries just look incredibly cheap compared to the US. So I haven't personally done much. I own a couple of Canadian companies, but nothing else really overseas. But that's definitely something I've been looking more into. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm just yesterday, I bought my first company in Japan.
Oh, really?
Kind of followed Pabrai into that Shinnikin real estate company. 30-year CEO, has a great track record of capital allocation, spawner. It's still pretty small. I think it's like maybe 300 million market cap. So mostly a cloner play, but it was interesting to go through that process on Interactive Brokers and buy my first international stock.
So you have to go through Interactive Brokers. Is that how it works?
I couldn't find any other brokerage firm that would allow me to buy something on the Japanese exchange. And yeah, I'm still bummed. Like I can't figure out how to buy in Turkey, South Korea, India. Pabrai owns companies in those places, and I just can't figure out for the life of me how to buy as a U.S. citizen in those places. But it's
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, I don't know. You would think by now it would be you'd be able to do it pretty easily, but
You
I
would
guess
think. You would think. There's the next big disruptive brokerage, right?
yeah, yeah, right there.
Um, Using inversion in investments, how to quickly reject an investment idea. A great skill of Charlie Munger is how he could take apart an investment thesis in 15 minutes. How do we develop such a skill?
Huh, that's a good. I mean, I think something that I would do is I think there's a lot of websites like Values and Investors Club where you can look at past
Mhm.
like theses of stocks, and I think something probably useful would be to go back and look at some of those, and there's probably some that didn't work out, and then sort of backtrack and figure out what was the thesis going forward from that point and why didn't it work out. I think that's probably a good way to take a look at some real examples of investments that didn't work out.
Totally. Yeah, it's always fun when I find a company that's had a recent write-up in VIC, and they're all bullish, and then I look through, and every couple of years there's a write-up looking back, going back, and everybody's bullish every couple of years. It's like, well, didn't pan out. It hasn't panned out so far, so maybe there's a reason for that. Um, let's see, anything else? So I've been enjoying Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse?
No, I have not gotten on it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no. What is it like? I know it's the voice chatting, right?
It's yeah. I guess Andreessen Horowitz, put a bunch of money into it. It's very early just for iPhone now. Do you have an iPhone, or are you an
Yeah,
Android guy?
I,
iPhone, cool. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. You'd hear the idea, you'd hear the pitch, and you're like, well, what? Well, I don't get it. But then you get in there and you realize it's actually quite intimate, hearing other people's voices in real time. Um, and it's cool. You can kind of be wherever you want to be. You don't have to like be in front of a screen and kind of be put together and all of that. So just last Friday, investing with Tom. Who else was there? Investing with Frank. Kind of five of us got together and we did like a 1 hour kind of investing chat. And there were a handful of people kind of listening in as well. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So we're going to have to get you on there.
yeah, yeah, for sure. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So how does it like? I don't know. When I hear that, I just feel like it would be everyone talking over each other. So is it like one person at a time, or like how does it work in those rooms where there's like a bunch of people?
Yeah, so there's the host, and then there's other people who can kind of mute and unmute their mic whenever they want, kind of like the VIPs or however you want to call it. And then there's the people in the common room. And if you're in the common room, you can raise your hand, and someone can kind of unmute you. But I haven't had an issue with people talking over each other. Um, you just kind of unmute, and you can see when other people are unmuting, so you kind of know if somebody's about to speak, and that
Nice.
helps. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to do it every week with other investors. It's fun to bounce ideas around. And yeah, that's another question I had for you. This value investing, pursuit can really be kind of a lone wolf kind of activity. I'm curious, do you have other people you bounce ideas off of, or how have you gone about building community in this kind of world of value investing?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing would be a lot of my subscribers write messages to me about certain stock picks or thoughts on things I've invested in. So there's definitely a lot of smart people on YouTube. I think that's where I try to bounce ideas off of the most. And then of course there's always places like other websites where you can write investment ideas and stuff. So I think there's a number of good places where I try to. I think the thing to stay away from is an environment where everyone sort of agrees. I think that's sort of the wrong way to look at it. Like a lot of YouTube channels, I think you're going to want to try to find someone that disagrees with you. I
Right.
think that gives you a better understanding of your ideas.
It's interesting. I've been more and more conscious of that. Like, how do I try to bring in people who can intelligently disagree with my perspective? And I think Dalio really kind of brought that to the forefront through his book Principles, and it's something I'm valuing more and more. Having people, and it's not. It's something I've shifted to. Like, I don't know. I think through most of my life, it's like, okay, I want to be around people who like kind of agree with me, who think similarly, but it's a big mistake, I think, in the realm of investing to be in that situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, oh, I had a question around, what's the end game for your YouTube channel? Are you trying to build a business in terms of monetization? I don't know if you're running ads, you probably are. What's your, yeah, kind of business strategy around YouTube if you're going that route?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do have ads on. So it brings in something. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, but that's always nice. But I think the biggest thing for me is just to build a track record, I guess, where I can sort of document my progress as an investor. I think that's sort of a powerful thing to have. And 10 years from now, if I look back and I can see my performance, I think that's a pretty cool thing to be able to show people.
Yeah, and you have that accountability as well, right?
Mhm.
Do you have ambitions to start a fund at some point, or what's your thinking on that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, definitely no immediate plans,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, who knows? Maybe that could be something. Wouldn't rule it out.
Uh-huh. I presume you probably have another source of income. Like what's your 9 to 5 if you have one?
Yeah, I work as an analyst, so
Okay.
it yeah, it relates pretty closely to investing in the YouTube channel, which is pretty nice.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, all right. Well, I guess my last question for our viewers, for people who are just getting started, what would you suggest in terms of getting off on the right foot around investing? How
I
does a
would
beginner educate themselves properly?
yeah, I would say probably just read as much as you can. There's a lot of great investing books out there. Um, you can do that. You can watch YouTube videos. Um, even though some of them aren't very good. But I would say just, yeah, just read investing books, learn how to read annual reports, like find a company that you're familiar with. Like it could be like Apple, if you're familiar with their products, and just go back 10 years and read all the annual reports. I think that's a really good way to sort of figure out what to look for when you're analyzing a company. And then once you do that, just find a bunch of businesses and try to value them. I guess just see, um, you know, take a look at what the business does, how much money they make, and try to figure out how much you would pay for it. And I think if you do that a bunch of times, it becomes almost second nature. And then at that point, it becomes a lot easier to start doing with real money.
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Elias. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brad. This was fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Let's do it, man. All right. I'll see you later.
All right, thanks.
Okay.